welcome to Watercolor Studio 42. And I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm always trying to experiment, and usually I try to pass some of this information along to my students or have them tackle the problems that, that might come up. And it just makes it kind of interesting because it's a different approach to where you would stop. What would you use to start with, and so forth. And so this is I call it benchmarking because I've started off on, I don't know if you can notice it, I've tried to use a marker rather than a pencil. But I'll probably do the same thing by drawing this out with a marker. Now, normally, if I was doing this at home, I would probably do it with a pencil, just a 2B pencil, nothing special. And so today I'm just going to use one of these Sharpie markers, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. Sometimes I'll say to the students, or even to what I'm saying to myself, I guess, that I'll start with just some dots on the paper, and then I have to invent something by the way I extend one dot to another. They used to have these little things that you used to be able to follow the numbers, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and so forth, to make the image appear. But anyways, this is just going to be connecting the dots, and I'm going to try to mentally remember that I'm dealing with this particular subject, dealing with a little country road and some trees on either side of the road. And in this particular photograph, the trees are leaning in, and I always suggest that you have the trees leaning in so that they're not leaning out of the picture. You don't want the trees to act like an arrow pointing to the left or right, but to kind of lean in a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, now, where to start? I'm looking at the image here. Now, it's sort of a country road. It kind of cuts right through the center. But what I try to do is have the road come in, narrow in, kind of to the vanishing point, and then kind of turn around the corner, just bend around a little bit, either to the left or to the right. So I'm going to do that a little bit with this one today. Normally I usually sometimes I come in from the left and have the road bend around to the right. But let's try this a little bit different today. I'm going to connect these dots coming in from the right to left, okay? So I'm going to start way down here, almost in the corner, and I'm going to go to one of the dots up in here. I'm going to try to connect the dots if I can, and maybe you want to hesitate a little bit where you want the dots to go, but right now I'm coming across, and I'm going to have the road bend coming in from the right side going to the left. And I always put some marks on the paper so I know where halfway is, half the paper vertically as well as horizontally, so you can estimate where the center might go. And I usually work above or below. I'm always doing whatever I do sort of not perfectly symmetrical. I want to make it a little bit out of balance. Okay, that's that. Now I've followed the dots out through here. Now I'm going to come in. I'm going to come in from my left to right, and I'm going to make that little dirt road kind of go to a vanishing point, connecting the dots. I've actually made it a little bit easier for myself. At least I'm following around the dots. Of course, I already know what I'm trying to do here, the subject matter. Here we go. Now I'm going around the bend. Now that can go to another dot. In other words, when you're doing the dots, you can connect one dot to the same dot, type of thing. So it goes around the bend. Now, I'm going to start doing the trees. For the most part, they're vertical up and down, leaning in. And there's one here that's really quite noticeable. It's in the foreground. So I'm going to start that tree up, and I'm going to go up through here and try to see if I can connect I can have this go actually right to the tape or out of the picture. Okay, that's one side of that tree. Now I don't know if I can do something with the width of it. Here's another dot. Yeah, it looks like I'm managing to find enough dots to get up through the tree here. Oops, that's going to be a little bit out of place. Maybe that can go off there for a limb on the tree. Yeah. Now I got to come back. Let's see, pick it up from this dot to here and have that go up into there somehow. Again, going off the page here a bit. Now, let's see. Have I got everything connected? Yeah, it looks okay. Now I got to get this base part. See if I can get that done. Put that in. Okay. Now let's see. We've got a few more trees to put in. Move up through here. Whoops, that's gonna go through this one. That's all right. That's okay. And we'll put another one starting up through here. See, this way, in a way, it's kind of make it. You have to kind of plan it a little bit where the dots are. Probably if I was drawing this freehand without trying to follow dots, it might be easier. Let's go from this one out. Yeah, like that. We can always go, like I said, from one dot out, branch out a bit. Okay. Now, I like to do uneven numbers, 3, 5, something like that. So we can have a couple of these. And we've got 4 now. Let's put another 5 in here. I'm trying to stay with the dots if I can. There you go, something like that. Now, let's do some things over here. Follow the dots. Kind of interesting, these things, the way they come out. Not always the way you plan to do it, but a lot of artists, when they draw a lot, they use these, what they call a benchmark. They relate one object to another object, so they get the spacing a little bit more correct. Hopefully, here we go. Now we got some other trees that are down here in the foreground. Let's see. Well, I think I can follow the dots up through here. Kind of interesting. Now, what I've been doing lately, I've been doing a lot of the outlining of the subject with a marker, and it's easier for me to see the thing rather than trying to stay with the pencil marks. I used to go very light with the pencil. You can still do that yourself. But lately I've been doing it almost like drawing the picture like you would fill in a coloring book. Same idea, I guess. Let's see what we have over here. Just some short lines in through here. That's going to be a little darker area in the picture. And I fill it in with color. Got something else coming up through here. Now, you can stop you don't have to keep going with the connecting the dots. You can just put some shorter connections of dots in through this area, down in through here. Let's come up this way. Whoops, stay with the dots. Okay, something like that. And I'm going to have some cast shadows probably in through here going across the road. You know, the shadows, when you put the shadows in across the road, it sort of slows you down a little bit. It's almost putting bumps on, you know, these, what do you call those, speed bumps? It's almost, the shadows act the same way. They slow the eye down, and if you have some of those shadows cast across the road here. Okay, here we go. Now, how much of this you want to do, you can always do a little bit more with it. How much detail you want to get involved with. Okay, let's make this one a little bit wider through here. All right, that's all right there. Okay, now I can always put more marker lines in if I want, but I'm going to kind of stop a little bit in through here. Maybe make this one a little bit longer there, connect there. Okay, so here we have something to do with connecting the dots. And probably I wouldn't, if I was starting off with a blank piece of paper, I wouldn't be doing this, trying to follow the dots, but I would probably be doing it a little bit, you know, the way it is, what I see there. But this sort of does make you change direction a little bit here from normally what you would probably do. I think that's pretty much it. Now, this particular picture is a minimal amount of color. It's sort of like some browns. It paints, you know, paints gray, may have a little bit of that in there. A lot of yellow leaves. I might make the leaves a little bit greener so it looks more like springtime. Okay, we'll see what happens. What happens, I think I'm going to just, I always do the sky a little bit first. So let's put in a little bit of the sky. The sky really in this particular picture isn't very strong blue. It's not blue at all. It's more of a raw sienna. So we just put a little bit of sky in there. Just put a little pinch of brown into it. There we go. Just a pinch there. We'll see a little bit of sky coming up through the top. And usually a picture that I'm painting outside, I always start, for the most part, I always start with the sky and work down, so I'm not working over some wet paint. Just from top to bottom. Oops, it's a little bit too much. If the color gets a little bit too dark at first, I just blot it. Just hit it with a paper towel, and then come back into it. Not so much with paint on the brush, but kind of just pull some of that around. Lighten it up. See how you can pull that out of there? You can do that with watercolor before you let it settle in too long. Okay, here we go. Now, yeah, I'm going to put some warmer color over in here too, right along the edge. Right over here, a little bit on this side. I'm always looking to where I can repeat the color somewhere else. In this particular picture, this particular subject, that's going to be much easier because it doesn't have that much color in it to begin with. oh, different color. Okay. The road is, like I said, the road's going to be sort of a, really you can use sort of a deeper brown, sepia, a little darker color. Dilute it down a bit. This is going to be where the road is. We'll make it a little bit different. Oh, that's a little bit too much. Let's spread it out. Yes, that's better. Catch it before it could dry, settle in, dry in, whatever. There you go. This is where the road could be. Now this is sort of just putting in these flat background washes to be good. Okay. Now we can start getting a little stronger with some of the yellow. We've got some bright areas there. Now the yellow can be tempered down a little bit too with some brown. We'll just take a little bit of that. Some of my raw sienna and mix it in with the yellow just to soften the yellow out. I'm using just a round number 14 brush. Get some of these brighter colors in there. Now if you want this to be springtime, we're just going to put a little bit of green into it. Now you can wet the whole paper. A lot of times I just wet the paper with water, and when you put the color and the water on it, it's like painting wet into wet. But this is sort of painting sort of wet on the dry areas. That's the big thing about painting. A lot of times you want to get some color, some background base colors into your picture before you get started. A lot of times I let it set up longer. If I have more time, I let the colors sometimes settle in a little bit longer. Okay. Okay. All right, now, somewhere I had some green. And we'll be careful about my greens. We'll put that separate there, keep that up there somewhere. And you've got yellow, so you can start putting your green while your yellow's still wet. You can start tapping some of that right into the yellow. And you can still let some of that yellow show through too. See how that works? Now, if it's getting a little bit much, I just blot it. Just take some of the green up before it can settle in. Okay, we're going to come down through here. Now, I'm not really trying to stay inside of any lines, really. I'm just putting some patches of color in here, kind of spreading it around. Okay. It's a little bit on the pale side of green. But with watercolor, you can put layers and layers and layers of paint on your paper. And I usually don't put too many layers, maybe 3 or 4 different layers of paint. Some artists like to go a little bit heavier than that, which is fine. Everybody has their own particular style, I guess, of doing things. There's always a better way, but you have to be careful that you do things really the right way. You want to do things more right than wrong, that's for sure. Some people just like to paint. They don't let anything bother them, you know. Hey, just get some color in there, you know. You don't worry about it too much. I'm losing some of my yellow. I want to get that back in there. Now, I'm coming back now. I put green in there. Now I can put yellow back into on top of the green. See how you can kind of mix the colors on the paper. Okay, let's do the same thing up in here. Get some yellow back into the green. Okay. Starting to look kind of spring color. Everything's so fresh, you know. The grass has nice coloring when it comes back. Okay. Want to lighten it up a bit. Hit it with a towel. I usually paint with one hand, you know, one hand with the brush and the other hand with a paper towel, so I can come back and blot in there when I feel that needs it. Okay, now let's get back to some of this color for the road here. The color that we see on the road. Again, you can vary the shades. You know, you're going to see some darker shades where the shadows fall and all that. And keep it light where the sunlight's coming through a little bit stronger. What we were doing mostly is getting some paint on the paper, that's for sure. Put some of that up in there. Okay. Now, you can allow some of the, in certain places, you can allow some of the lighter paper, you know, to show through. And I guess in the art world, we call it allowing some windows, letting the light come in to the so-called window area. Let's see what we can do here. This gets a little bit darker along the edges. We can do a little bit heavier too. Oh, not that heavy probably. Let's pull some of that out. Right through up and through here. Okay, a little bit over here. Just a little bit over on this side. Now what I'm doing, I keep kind of building the color, you know, putting layers of color in, and kind of letting some areas settle in a little bit more. Now, if you want to make sure you make sure your paper towel's clean. But let's say if I wanted to allow some more light to come through, see what I can do? Before it dries out, I use the paper towel to pick up some of that wet paint and water, and you can put some highlights back in the road. You do that anywhere. You can do it up in here. The green's starting to dry in a bit, but at any time you can sort of, fill the color in a little bit more. Okay, now, another thing too, sometimes you want the colors to dry out a little faster. I blot it. If you had plenty of time, you'd let it dry out naturally, but sometimes if you have to kind of help it along a little bit by blotting it. Okay, now I could see where we can have some fun with this thing. All right. Now we're going to have some darker areas coming in here. The trees themselves are going to be darker. All of this in through here. I could put some real darker shadows in there. Now, once you do that, then it gives you a little bit more depth. Right now, everything looks kind of flat, The colors look a little bit on the flat side. Okay, now, let's see what we got. Usually dries out fairly fast. The studio lights, they give off some heat, so they help your paper dry a little quicker. There we are. Okay. Now, another thing you can do, if you have a stipple brush or a flat brush, flat across the width of the brush here, you can start coming in, and up until now I've been kind of pushing the color around, kind of swishing it around, but now if you want, you can start coming in and have a little bit different approach to it. Instead of you can come in and just start stippling a little bit. Sometimes you can use a sponge. See, you just put some little specks of color in there, or some texture. I think sometimes a sponge kind of works a little faster than trying to do it manually with the brush, but you can get some of that texture back in kind of the shape of the leaves, and so it's not quite as flat as it was. Let's do a little bit over here. Distribution of your color too. Now down in here it's going to be a lot darker also. You got some dark areas down through here. When you're out, even during the daytime, if the trees, there's a lot of density, thickness of the trees and so forth, usually the light can't get through. So a lot of things, the under part of the tree is going to be much darker. That's what I'm putting in now, some of those darker areas. You have to be careful you don't get too dark. Maybe pull some of that out a little bit around. And then soften the edges. Kind of pull the paint back in. Something like that. Sometimes when you get near the edge of your paper, you don't have to do too much texturing with it. You just have it fade away somewhat. See how it fades away? Just pull it out. A little bit more water on the brush and just pull the color out, softens out in places. Okay, let's come up through here. Again, I'm just sort of tapping the brush in through here. And there's a real dark area through here too. The trees are quite dense in certain areas. Along the edge of the road here. Okay, you get the idea of how that works. We'll do a little bit more down through here. Now you can allow probably just a little bit of light coming through here and there. Sometimes if you cover up an area that you want the light to come through, what I do is mix up a little bit of my white and just put a patch of paint in there, and it brings the background of the original color of the paper out, the white of the paper. Now you're looking at your work, so you can sometimes see where it might need a little bit more attention, like down through here. Just have this fade away a little bit more. And if that looked kind of flat over here, I just go right to the edge. Just pull some of that right out. Fill it in along the edge here. A lot of tapping, a little bit of tapping. Okay. Now, if I was going to do this, and I had probably a lot of extra time, to work on it, I'd probably slow down a bit and maybe spend a lot more time in one particular area, but you have to keep moving along here. Yeah, okay. Now I'm doing a lot of this little tapping texture. Like I said, you can use a sponge. I use a regular sponge from the ocean sponge, not a man-made sponges. But sometimes they sell a package of, you can get a package of various textures. Don't get a package that some of the sponge doesn't have any texture to it at all. It looks very smooth. Well, that wouldn't work as well, because once you hit the paper, it just comes out flat. It doesn't have any, texture to it. Sort of like little pock marks. Here we go. It's a little bit of fussy work, tapping around. And see what we can do. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow along the edge here too. Right along the edge of the road here. It gets a little bit dark. Just pick it up with the paper towel. Excuse me. Just blot it. Get a couple of towels here stuck together. There you go. Okay. Yeah, you can just tap that. Just kind of soften some of those edges out. I'm using some of my sepia, raw sienna, some of those colors. Now, while you're at it, you might say, well, some of these areas can be a lot more yellow, right? So you can put some of that brighter yellow back in. You can keep building up, different layers of paint. The only trouble is you don't want to keep putting wet into wet into wet, because what happens is after a while the colors sort of fade out a bit. You kind of lose the contrast. So you want to let some of that dry out a bit and then come back with a little bit more yellow. You can come back in with a little stronger green too. Even in here, if you don't want it to look too flat, I just put more color into that. Up to here, you can blot it. If it's still wet, you can still hit it and bring out some of the contrast. You notice I jump around a little bit. I never finish one particular area. You jump around. Okay. Now I started to do a little bit more down around the path here. Okay. There's some areas you can come back in. You can go a little bit heavier in some of these areas. That's what the photograph is. The photograph has quite a contrast between what's light and what's dark. Okay, yeah. Work a little bit more. You can spend a lot more time being fussy with the textures, that's for sure. Okay, now jump over here, see what I can do on this side. While I'm over here, that dries out a little bit more. Now, in the pictures, some of these cast shadows go across the road. You might want to make those a little bit more noticeable. But even that, you have to be careful with just hit it a little bit. Might be a little bit too much. See what we got. We can have something going in there. If some of the shadows are a little bit hard edged, I just hit them, pat it down a bit. You can always come back. Like I said, you can put layers and layers on and keep building it up. And try to follow this picture. It gets a little bit dark through there too. Maybe we can work a little bit of darkish color right on the edge here. Okay. If this looks a little bit on the heavy side, you can erase it a bit. Take some of the edge off and pull it out. That's the beauty of watercolor also. An area can dry out, and all you have to do is come back and keep scrubbing it a little bit and reactivate the pigment and soften it out. Some of the edges, sometimes you get a little bit on too noticeable, too hard, too much of an edge. Now what we're trying to do here is to define the road. Now that means we've got to come across with a little bit of contrast. The road through here is a little bit on the lighter side, but along the edges we can afford to go much darker. You just have to be careful with how you work that. I'm running out of that particular color. Let's put some of that back in there. Darker color. Here we go. Yeah, you can come back in here. See, you can hit certain areas, make it much darker. Crossed over here. Okay, whoops. Take out that. It's sort of like a gradual build-up that you can kind of develop. It takes a little while sometimes. Keep building it up. Sometimes it can get a little too heavy. Let's use another brush here. Okay. This is a flat brush, 1/2 inch. Now you can still take the edge of this and stipple a little bit with a flat brush. Take one edge of the brush. You can bring out the color. I'm going to go a little bit heavier through here too. Darker with that lighter color. Okay. A little bit more up in here. Again, I'm tapping with the edge of the brush here. How about some more up in here? Give it some more texture. I keep building up, building up, building up. Building up the color. And you want to give it, in some cases, you want to give it a little bit of time to that color to set up. Otherwise, just keep mixing. It won't kind of stay on there too well. It blends in. You can see how we're kind of evolving something. And there's a little bit more in there. Take a little bit down here on top of that. Yeah. Again, soften. Some of the colors can soften out. I soften out a lot when I'm going to the edge of the paper. Kind of, sort of a fadeaway. Okay. Let's see what else. Okay. Now you might want to come back in and you might want to define right into here some of the texture of the road. Kind of. Right now, kind of the edges a lot. So what I usually do is come back in there and take some of my real darker color, if I can find it wherever I put it down. Okay. Yeah, I'll put that back over here. And that's my green. No, I don't want to go too much more green. I got enough green. That's not a problem. Sepia. Sepia is really dark, quite dark. You might want to use a little bit more sepia, really, to contrast the road right through here. Yeah, see how it jumps out a bit. But then you don't want to have that. I kind of make the edges fade away, blend up in here more, take away a little bit of it. But you want to leave some parts of that sharper too. You know, you want to leave some of that real sharper contour there. And sometimes it doesn't look right when it's wet. You have to let it dry out. We're going to come around the bend here. Just make this a little bit more noticeable here. See how that brings out the lightness in the road? And by the time I get through, I'm going to do some trees. Fill that in with a few more branches that have color. Okay, right through, probably on this edge. Okay, we're going to just kind of darken that up a bit. Okay. Now, again, I want to take the edges off of that too. I want to make that break up a little bit more. And that goes up into here. And it just kind of goes around the corner, up around the corner. Okay. I don't want to get too busy on the edge. Take some of the edge. I have some of that fade away. Fade away on the edge. Okay. But you can see how that can make a difference in your contrast. I don't know if you can make some of the shadow maybe a little darker, possibly. I don't know. Nah. I'm not crazy about that being that dark. Yeah, lighten it up. Take another brush. So a larger round brush. And you can use that to kind of take down some of the edges. I don't know that's still needs to be a little bit more contrast there. Maybe up to here. Maybe take some of the color, pull it back up into there more. Okay. Let's see what else we can do here. That's really a dark spot, right down in there. Right down in there somewhere. It's a little bit on the heavy side, darker. And I don't like that there, so I'll soften that out. Make that more of a solid color there. Okay. I think putting the shadows across the road, though, it does help a lot to kind of slow things down a bit. Like I said, it's like putting those bumpers, speed bumps, slows your eye down. I don't like that one too dark. Pull that out. Okay. Take some more of that out of there. And pull some of this across into here. Okay. Now you can spend a lot more time working on this. I'm down to about 5 minutes here. But you can let it dry, And you can go into this with a colored marker too. I happen to just have a black one with me today, but if you wanted to make this more branches up into that, you could do more with it. You take a spot in through here, kind of, flat, and you can actually add more dots in there for texture if you want. Add some texture to it, especially in through here. You take an area that's flat, you can fill it in with a lot more dots, just for texture. A lot more through here. Okay, that gives you an idea of how that works. Now, if you want, you can kind of clean up the edges. You can do a lot more into here with this. I usually let it set up a little bit more before I go into it with a marker. They have colored markers, so you can use different textures. Have some break it up a little bit more. I add more branches in there. Now, there's some areas that come out that look halfway decent. They give off a nice effect. If you looked at this tomorrow morning too, it's going to look a lot different. After the colors can settle in and dry in, you'll notice the texture's softer. A little bit funny, fuzzy in here. Okay, but anyways, I think this gives you a little bit of an idea. I think I'd come in just a little bit heavier right up through here. Give that a little bit more stronger contrast in this corner. Just to break up that corner a little bit. This can be a little bit stronger, maybe a little bit through here. A little bit more of a solid color there. I don't know if I like that too much. Let's tap that out of there. Okay, that kind of gives you an idea where we're at. This gets a little bit scratchy in here. Again, it's just a matter of taking your brush with water on it. Just some water on it. Reactivate the color, and you can just pull that out, soften that right out, and you blot it so you don't notice that scratchy texture. Okay, gives you an idea. Now this is kind of light on the edge here, and what I'm going to do is just make that a little bit more of a contrast down through there. So when I pull the tape off, you can see the difference there. A little bit darker up in this corner. Now we're kind of running out of time. We're down to less than a minute here. So I'm just going to pull the tape. Take the tape off. And I kind of left a kind of a false, what's the cap on that? I don't want that to dry out. Here we go. Now, let's take the tape off, and this will give you a little bit of an idea. This is almost a semi-abstract, I guess. But it's good tape, very good tape. Get some of this off. When you take the tape off, you want to tear it on a sort of a 45-degree angle so it doesn't affect the surface of your watercolor paper. Oh, go along through here. You make sure the edges are padded. When you put the tape on, you want a false margin. You want to make sure the tape along that edge pat it down a little bit so it doesn't leave any paint getting underneath there. Okay, here we are. Almost there. Got a little piece up at the top. Here we are. Okay. So I guess we've run out of time pretty much, so this will give you an idea what it looks like. This is what I was kind of referring to, the photograph, so you get an idea of what it looks like, okay? So it still needs some work. It still needs some fussy work on it, probably to find that road a little bit more, the texture, and to probably add more speckling in the leafy area. But that kind of gives you an idea. I'm not creative up in here. I'm going to just blot it down so it's not quite as heavy. Yeah, but that just gives you kind of an idea of what we were trying to, the effect we were trying to do with that. So all I can say, folks, is brush it up, and we'll see you next time. Okay? Take care.